Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is a strange case of Sean here with the finale of my story, the Wyatt 6 Invade AEW. It has been a crazy ride from mind games to torn friendships and bodily harm. The Wyatt 6 have been on a mission to cleanse the AEW locker room, with their most prized target being MJF and the Blackpool Combat Club. It is all about to come to a head at AEW's last pay-per-view of the year, World's End. Before we begin the show, let's speed ourselves up on some of the characters and what they are up to. Alicia Tout is still on leave and sends a tweet asking MJF to show mercy. Where the Yuta was taken out before Anarchy in the Arena and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Claudio Castagnoli was last seen at Anarchy in the Arena after Uncle Howdy threw him into a large spotlight. He has been injured since. Now here's some updates before the World's End pay-per-view. After Nikki Cross interfered in the number 1 contenders match for the TBS Championship, Tony Khan announces Cross will defend her championship in a weapons war match against both Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker, with the championship hanging above the ring. Swerve accepted Osprey's challenge after being maliciously attacked by him and Don Callis. They will fight in a no-holds-barred match. The main event of the show will be a blood and guts match between the Wyatt 6 and Team AEW, represented by MJF, Bryan Danielson, and Jon Moxley. The stipulation has been set to be a 4 vs 4 match. The Blackpool Combat Club is adamant about not needing a 4th member because they are determined to purge the plague that is the Wyatt 6. MJF is more reluctant. His reluctance led him to having a conversation with his old comrade Wardlow, who has been on a rampage since returning and has caught the eye of many, including Uncle Howdy. He tries to convince Wardlow to join their team, but Wardlow reminds MJF how much he can't stand him, literally joining a faction because of how much he despises him. MJF says there may be no AEW left if the Wyatt 6 continue their plans. Wardlow walks away. And now, we've arrived at one of the most pivotal pay-per-views in AEW history, World's End. The pay-per-view opens up with a bright, realistic globe spinning. In the countries, we see clips of the most popular stars from AEW. Then, we hear the familiar voice of Uncle Howdy. It is war you crave and war you worship. I know war. I know who created war. War is the repercussions of impasses. This place and I have reached an impasse. They deter the inevitable. The cleansing will commence one way or another, whether it be dredging through broken bones scattered on the ground or puddles of blood and guts. The globe begins to become scorched and the countries show recaps of the Wyatt 6 attacks. Howdy continues, "You don't understand, let alone have a fraction of an idea what you've asked for. I've felt pain and welcome its cold embrace, for it is not the end. I've warned many times to prepare yourself, and I am confident in my belief you haven't. Because I've seen it all, in my dreams and in my thoughts, and above everything else, I understand this is not the end. It's only my beginning. The world has turned to a gray, burnt chunk and reveals the World's End logo." The announcers welcome the viewers and fans to the show. Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay are set to open the show. Will makes his entrance first to enormous boos alongside Don Callis. He parades and struts to the ring, confident for an easy match tonight against a weakened Swerve. Swerve's music plays and no one comes out. Don and Will laugh. The music stops. The crowd looks confused, but the music plays again. This time, Prince Nana walks out and the crowd cheers. He does his popular dance and Will and Don continue to laugh. Suddenly, Will is blasted from behind with a chair from a returning Swerve Strickland. He then gets hit multiple times on the back. A scatterbrained Don pulls the chair away from Swerve, and Swerve's attention moves to him. Don runs out of the ring, and he is met with an attack from Prince Nana on the outside. They then fight up the ramp, leaving the grudge match between Will and Swerve to begin. Will escapes the ring, but Swerve follows him out. Swerve grabs Ospreay by the hair and whips him into the steel steps, sending the steps flying apart. Ospreay winces, clutching his shoulder in pain, but Swerve is relentless. The crowd roars as Swerve taunts to the fans. He refocuses onto Ospreay, who picks him up to his feet, but he counters with a thumb to the eye. Ospreay then slams him face first into the ring post. Swerve goes to the ground, and Ospreay, smiling, pulls out a trash can filled with weapons from under the ring. He empties the trash can and then drives it onto Swerve's back. The crowd boos. Will flips off the crowd. Will sends Swerve back into the ring. He also sends the ring stairs into the ring. He begins with a barrage of attacks. Will begins to set up Swerve for the Tiger Driver, but Swerve counters it and hits him with a Jawbreaker. Will falls to the mat and escapes to the outside once again. Staggering on the outside, Swerve dives out of the ring and takes down the aerial assassin. Swerve looks underneath the ring and grabs a light tube. He then cracks it over Will's head and busts him open. The crowd cheers. Swerve sends Will back into the ring. He goes for a pin, but Will kicks out at 2. Swerve then takes 2 chairs from the outside and sets them up in the ring. He then gives Will a suplex on top of them and goes for another pin, but Will manages to kick out at 2 again. Swerve laughs in perplexity. He sees the destroyed chairs, then sets Will up for a pile driver. Will shakes his momentum and counters it into a standing sunset flip powerbomb. The crowd is impressed. Will goes for a pin, but Swerve kicks out at 2. Will grabs his own light tube. He then strikes Swerve on the head with it. He goes for another pin, but he again kicks out at 2. Will is frustrated. He sets up Swerve for another Tiger Driver and this time hits it on top of the chairs. Will weakly covers Swerve for the pin, but Swerve kicks out again. The crowd chants this is awesome. Both men get to their feet and trash talk each other, their foreheads and blood meeting. They then begin to quickly trade shots. Will kicks Swerve in the groin. Swerve falls to his knees. Will glides around Swerve and prepares to deliver a hidden blade. He misses as Swerve sends him into the air and hits him with both his boots. He goes for a pin on Will, but he kicks out. Swerve rises and looks on at the ring step sent in earlier. He picks up Will and brings him to the corner and places him on the top turnbuckle. He then joins him at the top and hits a Hurricanrana with Will landing on the steel steps. Swerve pins Ospreay. 1, 2, 3. Swerve wins the match and Prince Nana joins him in the ring to celebrate, while Don and medical personnel walk Ospreay to the back. After some more matches, it is now time for the TBS Championship match that is to be contested under a weapons war match, where the championship will hang above the ring. The entrances start with the first challenger, Mercedes Moné, followed by the second challenger, Britt Baker, and then the current TBS champion and Wyatt 6 member, Nikki Cross. Nikki barks at the referee, but gives the championship over to then be suspended above the ring. The bell rings and Nikki begins to laugh uncontrollably. Mercedes and Britt then begin attacking Nikki. They double team her at first with a couple tag team moves. Mercedes then hits Nikki with the 3 Amigos. Baker answers that by hitting Nikki with a Panama Sunrise. Britt and Mercedes get into each other's faces while Nikki rolls out of the ring. They then roll out of the ring and each grab kendo sticks. They find Nikki and begin taking turns with their weapons on her. She falls to the ground weak when Mercedes strikes Britt with the cane, destroying the partnership they just had. She then gives Britt a bulldog on the outside. Mercedes grabs a ladder and brings it into the ring. She sets up the ladder and begins to climb for the championship. Britt returns to the ring and hits Mercedes with her kendo stick. Mercedes falls off the ladder to her feet. Britt then hits her with a Russian leg sweep with the kendo stick. Britt then begins to climb the ladder, but is then met at the top by Nikki Cross. They trade blows at the top, but Nikki gets the upper hand and then she hits a neck breaker off the ladder onto the mat, leaving both women laid out. Mercedes gets back up and looks to see the opportunity to climb the ladder. She gets to the top, but is again met by Nikki. They trade blows and Nikki hits a suplex off the ladder. Nikki writhes in pain, but also throws in some laughs with it. The crowd actually begins to chant Nikki's name. Nikki gets back up and begins delivering strikes to Mercedes. Britt gets up and Nikki turns the strikes into her direction. She then picks up the kendo stick and proceeds to hit both her opponents with the stick until it snaps. She continues to laugh. She then proceeds to knock over the ladder onto the ropes. She then goes to the camera side of the ring and gets out a table and sends it into the ring. She then proceeds to do the same on the opposite side. She then builds a ladder bridge on the outside by the commentator's table. She then grabs a chair and runs back into the ring. She goes to strike Mercedes, but Britt punches Nikki, knocking the chair out of her hands. Britt then gets some more strikes in on Nikki. She kicks the chair over to Mercedes, who picks it up and then strikes Nikki in the back. She then hits her multiple times with the chair. She then looks ready to hit Britt with a chair, but she refrains. She instead throws the chair to Britt, who then proceeds to give Nikki some chair shots. Mercedes takes one of the tables that Nikki sent in and puts it into the corner. Mercedes and Britt pick up Nikki and throw her through the table. The crowd has a mix of cheers and boos. They then set up the ladder again and both climb up. They begin to trade shots at the top, but wind up knocking each other off the ladder. Nikki rises to her feet after the table crash. Britt then sets up the other table in the opposite corner. Mercedes and Britt both deliver some more strikes to Nikki. They then grab her and send her into the table. The crowd boos more than cheers. Mercedes then grabs Britt from behind and hits her with a backstabber and transitions it into the statement maker. Britt tries to escape and then moves Mercedes' hands so she can bite them to break the hold. They get back to their feet and Britt hits her with a running drop kick. Britt gets Mercedes back up and hits a brainbuster, which she then transitions into the lockjaw. Mercedes struggles to break free, but the submission is broken by Nikki launching herself on top of Britt. Nikki, standing weakly, laughs. She then hits Britt with her fisherman suplex in the middle of the ring. Nikki goes to climb the ladder and she begins to grab for her championship. She is then met at the top by Mercedes. Mercedes strikes her strongly in the face, causing Nikki to fall to her feet on the mat. She then pulls Mercedes down off the rungs. She then whips her over the ropes, landing onto the ladder bridge she made earlier. Nikki looks back and forth at both ladders. She then runs to the turnbuckle and hits a moonsault, landing on top of Mercedes, destroying the ladder bridge. Both women are taken out. The crowd cheers for the spot. Britt rolls out of the ring and begins throwing multiple chairs onto her fallen foes. She also grabs a ladder and throws that on top of both of them. She then rolls back into the ring and climbs the ladder and unhooks the championship to become the new TBS champion. Nikki breaks out of the chairs and laughs. The lights go out. When they come back on, she has disappeared, but Mercedes remains laying on the outside while Britt goes back to celebrating. It is main event time. The Blood and Guts match will see the Wyatt Six being represented by Uncle Howdy, Erick Rowan, Joe Gacy, and Dexter Lumis, taking on Team AEW, being represented by MJF, Bryan Danielson, and Jon Moxley. They've accepted the terms to make this a handicap match, but MJF was reluctant to agree. The rules for Blood and Guts matches are the same formats of War Games, except that the match ends when one member of a team submits or surrenders. We see MJF conversing with Danielson and Moxley. MJF says they may have made a bad decision. Moxley says the only bad decision was not fighting back. Bryan reminds them that they are all former world champions and they should give themselves some more credit. They fist bump. Then Jon Moxley holds them back as he makes his entrance to be the starting member for Team AEW. Before coming through the tunnel, he grabs a trash can. He makes his entrance and enters the cage. The lights dim and out comes Joe Gacy, being the starting member for the Wyatt Six. He pulls a kendo stick from underneath the ring and then enters the cage. The bell rings. Both men throw their weapons across the rings at each other. Moxley meets Gacy in his ring and they begin to trade blows. Moxley delivers some ferocious forearms and then an uppercut. Gacy then delivers a back elbow. He then gives some of his own strikes, sending Moxley into the ropes, who then does a middle rope rebound and then clotheslines Gacy. Moxley then hits Gacy with a trash can multiple times. The clock runs down, and out next is Lumis of the Wyatt Six. He enters the cage with a chair. Moxley throws the trash can at an entering Lumis. Moxley then begins a focused attack on him. Gacy attacks him from behind by attacking the leg of Moxley. Lumis then joins in on the attack. They deliver a double suplex to Moxley. Lumis goes to a turnbuckle and hits Moxley with an elbow. They pick him up, and Lumis holds him. Gacy then runs the ropes and then does his headstand rebound into a single leg dropkick to Moxley. Lumis and Gacy then do their double team move to him. The clock runs down, and out next runs Bryan Danielson to the aid of his Blackpool Combat Club brother. Bryan runs into the cage immediately. Lumis and Gacy try to double team him. Lumis holds Bryan's arms back, and Gacy prepares to deliver a stunning strike. Bryan counters by hitting Gacy in the face with a boot. He then swings the same foot back, breaking Lumis's hold with a kick to the groin. He then focuses his attack on Gacy with stiff forearms. Lumis goes to the turnbuckle corner area, trying to recover. Bryan works Gacy into the corner, and he continues with the forearms. He then delivers some kicks. He then runs and hits Lumis with a running drop kick, followed by another kick to Gacy in the other corner. He gives each of them 3 drop kicks, and the crowd roars Bryan on. Bryan then grabs the kendo stick and begins to wail on both of them. The clock runs down, and out next is Rowan, who comes down with his hammer and enters the cage. Bryan tries to get an early advantage, but is pushed back by the massive Rowan. Bryan quickly gets back up and receives the hammer to his stomach. Gacy then jumps on Bryan and begins to pummel him. Moxley recovers and begins an attack on Rowan, but is met with a big boot from Lumis. Rowan and Lumis stare at each other with some uncertainty. Rowan picks up Moxley and hits him with his vice grip slam. Bryan dives off of a turnbuckle and hits a double axe handle to Lumis, knocking him down. Bryan turns around to meet Rowan, who delivers a discus clothesline and celebrates, saying, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Gacy recovers and grabs the chair. He wraps the chair around Bryan's ankle. Rowan then stomps on the chair, followed by Gacy. The clock runs down, and no one comes out. The Wyatt 6 members look pleased. Rowan lifts up the hammer when the speaker sounds, screaming, "This is war." The crowd erupts while the Wyatt 6 stare at the stage. Wardlow then walks out to the approval of the crowd. He makes his way down and then enters the cage. Gacy and Lumis are then attacked by Danielson and Moxley. Wardlow and Rowan stare each other down when Wardlow delivers a stiff headbutt to Rowan, who drops his hammer, and the crowd cheers as Team AEW has evened the odds. Wardlow delivers some hard blows to Rowan's back. He then bounces off the ropes and hits a massive shoulder block to Rowan. He hears the roars of the crowd of tremendous praise. He picks up Gacy and delivers a gorilla press slam. Rowan looks to get up, but is then hit with a boot from Wardlow. Wardlow enters the other ring and is met with some strikes from Lumis, but Wardlow overpowers him quickly and shoves him down. Lumis gets back up and Wardlow hits him with a spear. Moxley and Wardlow fist bump each other. They check on Bryan, who is still recovering from the attack on his leg. Gacy then goes to do a springboard move to the opposing team, but is met with a kick to the gut from Wardlow, who then hits him with a massive powerbomb. The clock runs down, and Uncle Howdy's sound plays. The lights go out, and Uncle Howdy eerily walks down the ramp with Bray's lantern. He gets to the cage door and blows it out. He laughs, but quickly changes to anger. He screams, hyping himself up. He then enters the cage. The members of Team AEW stare on at the menacing leader of the Wyatt 6. Howdy shouts, "Let me have it." Team AEW goes to Howdy's ring, and Howdy begins to strike wildly, hitting anything he sees. He is overwhelmed by his opponents, but is saved by the other Wyatt 6 members. Bryan and Lumis share some strikes when Howdy clotheslines Bryan from behind. Lumis and Howdy continue to beat down Bryan. The big men, Wardlow and Rowan, continue to trade blows without either gaining the notable upper hand. Gacy and Moxley fight in the corner of the furthest ring. Lumis continues to work on Bryan's leg. Howdy pets Lumis's braids. He then grabs the chair and strikes Wardlow on the back. He then works with Rowan to beat him down some more. Moxley overcomes Gacy and begins to choke Gacy. Howdy pats Rowan on the head, who continues to attack Wardlow. He then strikes Moxley from behind, breaking the choke. Howdy picks up Moxley and places the top of the chair into Moxley's throat and slams it down onto the mat. Moxley squirms in pain and coughs, trying to catch his breath. Howdy picks him up and hits him with his sister Abigail. The clock runs down, and the final member of Team AEW, MJF, makes his way quickly to the ring. Howdy waves to him, welcoming him into the scary structure. MJF looks hesitant to enter. Howdy laughs and asks him, "Are you prepared, Max?" His reluctance fades and he enters. The cage door closes and the bell sounds, allowing blood and guts to officially begin. MJF curses at Howdy, who is then met with backup from his members. MJF shouts at them, "I will be the end of you." MJF charges Howdy, who is then attacked by the Wyatt Six. Howdy breaks away laughing and taunting the audience. He is then hit in the back with a dropkick from Bryan. He keeps kicking Howdy, but he is then met with an attack from Gacy. Howdy gets back up and laughs. Behind him emerges Wardlow. Howdy turns to see him. He asks, "Why did you deny me? Deny us. It was foolish." And he laughs. Wardlow replies, "You cost me a championship, you cost me money, and now you're about to pay." Wardlow rushes Howdy, but he ducks and Howdy hits him with a massive clothesline. Howdy roars through the crowd, closely resembling Bray Wyatt. As that happens, MJF continues to get attacked by Lumis and Rowan. Lumis gets MJF into a full Nelson hold. Rowan prepares to hit him with a big boot. As he goes for the boot, MJF slips out sneakily and Lumis gets hit with the boot. Rowan looks puzzled, but is then hit with a low blow by MJF. MJF grabs Rowan's hammer and then begins choking him out with it. He demands he quit, but Rowan writhes in pain. Howdy hits MJF from behind with a double axe handle. Howdy picks up the hammer, but is then attacked from behind by Moxley. He gains the advantage after pulling Howdy down by the silver hair of his mask and then hitting him with a boot to the face. Gacy jumps off the top rope, but is hit with a kick to the gut and then gets hit with Moxley's Death Rider DDT. Howdy escapes to the other ring. Lumis stalks Moxley from behind and gets him into a $1 Million Dream sleeper hold, and he shouts at him to give up already. Wardlow breaks it up and then hits Lumis with a monstrous powerbomb. Rowan looks to be recovering, but is met with a running knee from Bryan. Howdy gathers his composure on the ropes at the other side of the ring. He turns around to see MJF, Moxley, and Bryan in the ring with him. Wardlow slides the table over to them. They charge Howdy and each get strikes on him. Howdy gets to the corner. He is hit with a running elbow from Bryan, which is followed by a running knee. Moxley then hits him with his Death Rider DDT. Wardlow picks him up and hits him with an F10, whipping Howdy through the air. Wardlow leaves and goes to the other ring, followed by Moxley. Bryan pats MJF on the shoulder, telling him to finish it. MJF nods. Bryan goes to the other ring. Team AEW looks to stabilize the other Wyatt Six members, while MJF aims to purge the devil that's been haunting him. MJF delivers vicious elbows to Howdy's forehead, cracking his mask. Howdy begins to bleed and he laughs. MJF shouts, "I bet you think it's funny, you son of a..." and continues punching him. Howdy appears to be dead weight at this point. MJF picks him up and looks to put him in position for Sister Abigail. Howdy suddenly grabs MJF's hands and shouts at him, "There you are." The lights then go out. You can hear a bunch of commotion in the ring, but can't see a thing. The lights come back on, and Howdy has disappeared. All that is left is his bloodied, shattered mask. MJF is confused and grows angry. He slams the mask down and destroys it with his foot. Bryan goes to console MJF. MJF shouts at Bryan, and Bryan tells him to harness that anger and to finish this. Wardlow continues to attack Rowan on the ground. Bryan and Moxley take turns hitting Lumis on the back with a chair, having a friendly competition to see who can deal more damage. MJF picks up Gacy and then hits him with a Sister Abigail, and then transitions that into his armbar submission. He wrenches his arm back, causing Gacy to surrender. Team AEW wins. The crowd erupts with happiness. Team AEW looks on at the destruction laid in the blood and guts match. They then celebrate before the crowd. Wardlow, Moxley, and Bryan smile, while MJF's expression remains solemn and cold. It wasn't only just about winning blood and guts. It was also about conquering Uncle Howdy, who has attacked him physically and emotionally in a way no one else has, and somehow it slipped from him. The commentators thank the viewers for joining and deliver the send-off. A highlight video plays of the match results and moments, but it is interrupted. The camera moves us down a dark hallway. The camera approaches a table with a single candle, and it remains focused on it. A woman's hand with painted nails grabs a match and lights it with the candle. The now lit match passes to another woman's hand, then through the hands of 3 men. The camera pans out to show members of the House of Black: Malachi Black, Brody King, Buddy Matthews, Julia Hart, and Sky Blue. Malachi begins to talk, and the camera begins to focus on him. And so the serpent stood back and thought about how his plan to wrap, strangle, and eliminate his foes went awry. He pauses. Or did it? He passes the match to someone off the screen. The camera follows and sees the hand is wearing a glove labeled Bray. The hand lights a lantern and brings it to his face to reveal Taylor Rotunda, with messed up face paint and bloodied. He laughs. He says, "You'll never get rid of us." The show cuts off. And that was the final chapter of the Wyatt 6 Invade AEW. I hope you enjoyed the finale and the series as a whole. Be sure to check out the previous chapters. I'll leave a link to the playlist at the end. I look forward to doing more of these as I really enjoyed creating this. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate all the support. Stay strange, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next video.